So you're talking more about transgender people coming into...
I'm talking about men who call themselves women.
You said that you're a trans woman.
A trans female, yes, sir.
Do you have a penis?
Every time you call them she, they get a euphoria boner.
What about someone who transitions, who literally cuts off their penis?
The world has lost its mind at the moment. Insanity rules.
But where this is coming from is the leftist agenda.
Islamic countries, any countries, women don't have equal rights. We're not treated as equal human beings.
Islamic regime, which is in Iran, has to go.
Woman life, freedom!
What is happening to women's rights? Whilst many people believe trans rights are human rights, others question if it comes at the cost of biologically born women. How far can society stretch one's truth for a more equal and inclusive society?
I will stand in the brink and stand in the way of anyone on the radical left who thinks that it's okay for a penis to be in a women's locker room or a bathroom or a changing room. Hell no.
To find out what's happening to women's rights, I went to Hyde Park in London to speak with women's activist group Let Women Speak, who had previously been targeted by trans rights activists for their views on women's sex-based rights.
We say to those Taliban fucks, let women speak!
What's happening to women's rights at the minute?
What isn't happening to women's rights at the moment? If you can't define what a woman is, how can you define what the rights are?
What's your definition of a woman?
It's an adult human female.
Adult human female.
The same, yes. Like, who am I to define what a woman is? It's not me, it's nature, it's science.
A woman is not an adult human female to me. A woman is an adult human female, full stop. And the gender stereotypes that are being debated are nothing to do with either men or women, because fashion choices are not something that requires legislating. If you're a man and you want to totter about in high heels, you can. And if you're a woman and you want to macho about in a lumberjack shirt, you can.
How do you feel now there's over like 250 genders that are given out to both men and women?
I don't think gender's a real thing. It's just like when I was a kid, in the 80s, if some lad wanted to play with dolls, that just meant they were a lad that wanted to play with dolls. That was just unusual. It wasn't like a thing that meant that they needed to be medicalised and all of that sort of stuff. It was just, your personality.
Physical things that harm people are very different to somebody expressing an opinion. Whether I may not like that opinion, but they still have a right to express it.
Yeah, why do you think people are so easily offended with people's opinions these days? It seems like you can't say what you think.
No one has a right to be not offended, though, do they? You could say something to me that's offensive. I don't know, I'm old, I'm wrinkly, I've got grey hair, I'm fat. You could say things and I think, oh, but you're still entitled to hold those opinions.
Yeah, so that's kind of the message for today. Everyone has their own opinion and it's about voicing it.
You're allowed to speak your opinion. These ladies are allowed to speak theirs. Everyone is entitled to their own point of view. And once you start to shut down speech, you start to shut down democracy. The two are they're linked.
After hearing women speak about the issues they're facing, I want to speak with the founder of Let Women Speak, Kelly J. Keane, who has faced backlash for her views on what it means to be a woman.
What is this if not an attempted genocide? Who are you after if not me?
What are you talking about?
You're after trans people?
You have explicitly excluded trans women from your definition of women.
Absolutely, of course I exclude trans women for the definition of woman.
Let's say, for an instance, I could go out on a night and I got... So who would I go to a women's refuge in your world?
Well, no, because then it wouldn't be a women's refuge, would it?
But is she really transphobic as the mainstream media and trans rights activists claim? And after all the threats she's faced for speaking out, I want to understand why.
Well, because you're not allowed to say that men aren't women and women aren't men, and that children shouldn't be learning about sexuality or sex as at primary school and all those other things that people worry about. Children's safeguarding and women's rights, essentially.
Why is there so much legislation at the minute in schools? I heard recently about people are arguing more about toilets than violent crime that's happening on our streets at the minute.
Well, because toilets is a way of eroding somebody's boundaries. And then if you lose your boundaries, then you're more vulnerable to all sorts of things. So it's boundary erosion is really important. Like it keeps you safe. It just keeps you having a perspective on being able to trust your intuition when you feel something is wrong. And if you'll get that taken away and eroded as a small person, as a young person, as a child, then you're in all sorts of harm. There's a reason that people who, for example, have childhood sexual abuse, they're overrepresented in people that go into the porn industry, for example. So it's really important that we don't gaslight children into a place and a position where they don't recognise their own boundaries.
So is your concern more for the children as well as women in general at the minute?
No, I think in order to get to children, you erode the status of women, and then you can get to children. I think there's some people that is their goal, is to get to children. I think there are other people that don't realise how much they hate women. So I think that's another reason. But I think it's both. 4/5 of the world's women are mothers, and so I think mothers and children are a little bit linked.
Are there certain groups that are against women, would you say?
Men. Just broadly. And I just want to say that awful thing, not all men, but enough of them that women should be very, very concerned. And look, if you're the sort of man that has so little respect for women that you think by sticking on our identity as a costume enables you just to carte blanche go into every space and every group and everything we've ever carved out for ourselves, then I think, you have shown yourself to be one to watch.
So you're talking more about transgender people coming into...
I'm talking about men who call themselves women. I don't think transgender is a particular group of people. I think they're just...
Woman's a woman, man's a man, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we all bow our heads a little bit when we use their language, because I don't think it's deserving of special words.
Right. And what do you think is happening at the minute to women's spaces?
Well, men, we don't have them because men are allowed in them. So there's no such thing as women-only spaces, really.
And who's that down to, making those kind of rules and legislations?
Well, it's down to very weak people, stupid people, and people with nefarious intent. So, all it takes for women to lose all their rights is for people to turn a blind eye. And some of those people will be women. Like, there's plenty of women that are willing to give us...
But why do you think they want to get women's rights kind of abolished in a way?
They don't understand that that's what they're doing. I don't think it's like, we're going to take women's rights away, how can we do it? I just think it's so second nature that they don't even understand that's what they're doing.
Is that because those that are in power are men, or just want certain ideologies?
Look, I think there's a bit of Oedipus going on with some of these men. And just look, if you want to go into your kid's school, if you're a mother and you go in and complain, you're not listened to. If you're a father, you are. And I don't think people understand that this happens everywhere, in every sort of aspect of our lives.
Yeah. And we're now just approaching Speaker's Corner. What do you expect will happen as we arrive?
Well, I expect some men will shit their pants. I don't know. It's terrible of us women to have these voices, but that's exactly what I'm going to go and use now.
So, guys, we just entered Speaker's Corner, and this is where people come to debate. Very religious, I've seen and heard online, but we just arrived, and as you can see, all sorts of characters. You've got a guy in a long nose mask.
What about these poor Palestinian children?
I'm not claiming victimhood.
But we are.
Maybe we can also speak to some of the other groups, but they're going to bring their speech here. They have a sign. The definition of a woman: adult human female.
But there are men occupying women's spaces all over the world. And in other countries, that includes the space of their own fucking voice. So, shut your fucking mouth.
I told you. I told you.
I've seen no marches for those women. I've seen no marches for the women in Iran under the Islamist dictatorship and Hezbollah, who are told that they cannot show their hair. Now what happens if they are imprisoned, if they show their hair? Or if they sing? And the morality police come and find them, and then they are never seen again. So...
Excuse me, I heard you say you don't want your wife to have too much power. What's the reason for that?
I mean, equal rights I'm referring to. We should have equal rights, but not,
But it's not equal if you have more power than your wife, no?
Well, I mean, if she was here, I was saying, if she was here now, She'd overpower me now with this, from what we're listening. That's what I'm referring to.
So you're saying she overpowers you with the words?
She's talking about females' rights over the men, basically. I believe in equal rights, you know.
I think they do as well, to be fair. I think they just
the way she's going on, you know, it's all for the women.
I feel like women feel in general like they're under attack.
Hear that for a minute, and we'll talk later.
That's all right, mate.
Do you even know what she's talking about?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What's she talking about then?
Women power.
No, she's not.
I heard her.
You just wanted to heckle her.
I don't want to heckle her.
You actually just wanted to heckle when you don't even know what they're talking about.
What are they doing then? Well,
they're speaking out against men going into women's areas on the grounds that they have changed their gender and things like that, and about men competing in women's sports events. I totally agree with you guys.
Well, there's something wrong with that. I think that we've got equal rights.
There's nothing wrong with men going into women's changing rooms.
No.
I think there's a big problem with biologically born men going into women's changing rooms, and I can understand why these women are very upset, and they're quite, as you've just seen, sir. They're very upset. We, you know, as men, we should realise that we are men, and we should honour and protect women.
Why do you think they have an issue with that at the minute, though?
Oh, I can understand they've got an issue with that, but the thing is that where this is coming from is the leftist agenda, where basically, you know, you can just self-identify as anything, and you don't have free speech.
A lot of people don't believe it. I talk to people about it all the time. I'll talk about it to anyone who stands still long enough to listen to me, and a lot of people don't actually believe that what we say is happening.
Or they think we're exaggerating, or it's made up, or it's some kind of hatred for people. It's not. Women's spaces need to be kept female only.
Absolute chaos in it. Everyone just keeps yapping about all sorts of things.
Why did Trump have an...
He did not.
Why did he have a Muslim ban?
Because of the countries. Which countries?
How can you have a Muslim ban? How can you have a Muslim ban?
What's your reason for coming today?
I am the big nose of London to challenge people's objective claims. What about you?
I've just come here just to listen to people what they have to say. I've been with Let Women Speak today. What's your kind of opinion on women's voices? It's quite a predominantly male area that I've seen.
Because of the fear of these charlatans here. There are people who can give you a bad look as a female, especially Muslim women. You see how dominant they are, you see, around here, all over. But no, unfortunately, even though the police is here, women are fearful of these people, charlatans.
What's your viewpoint on Speaker's Corner?
I'm here for Islam. I want to spread my religion.
Is that the way to do it, through Speaker's Corner?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, you can talk to your colleagues at work. You can talk to, other family members that might not be Muslim.
Yeah.
You can talk to people on the street. You can talk to anybody.
Why do you feel that other people should convert to Islam? Why is it not a case of just being Muslim?
I want them to be in heaven with me.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're like preparing for the future?
Yeah.
What is so great about God? I just don't get it. All these people that are like taken by God and like they've got a thing for God. I just don't see what's so great about God.
I see your T-shirt, boycott procreation. Are you against kind of couples having children?
Well, I can't see any reason why anybody would be for it. Why would anybody be for more children? Why would do we need any more people?
But how would you be born, or I be born?
Any more people?
What about just being like me and you being born?
Without us being born?
Well, if we didn't have more children, we wouldn't have been created.
So what? What's the big deal about that? Before I was here, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to walk, eat.
So then what's the point of living?
To come here and do this.
So what's the point of living in the end?
There is no point. As far as I know.
So what are we doing?
Pointless. We're doing because we're here because people like this guy's parents had unprotected sex. Nobody's speaking about that, are they? Think about 9 months before this guy was born. I bet his dad was not thinking about, I wonder where he'll be in 70 years' time. Maybe he'll be just like violently reading out the Bible, right, in a weird state of drunken religious stupor, right? All because two people wanted to have some sex.
I'm glad that we don't have the events there because I don't have a big voice. I'm really quiet.
Yeah, and is that what it's about, though? Having someone who does have a voice and kind of representing the people?
So I think she was talking about Afghanistan and the women in Afghanistan. They're not even allowed to talk to each other now.
And do you think those kind of cultures and ideologies are coming into the UK, or?
I'm worried about that, actually. I'm really worried about women's rights and where it's headed. because Afghan women had rights in the 70s, didn't they? They used to wear whatever they wanted, and now they've had that taken away. And it's really worrying because it's happening here.
One thing that is becoming a reality in the West is changes in how sex and gender are defined and recognised. A few days later, I joined women activists outside the German embassy in London, where they were protesting against Germany's newly introduced self-ID law.
Self-ID is the best!
What's your sign?
Okay, well, we've got the 1205, which was the time that the Germans astoundingly brought in a law that said that men can invade women's spaces just on their say-so, just the magic words, I am a woman, and that's it, having free access to women's spaces.
Gender self-identification allows anyone to legally change their sex and first name simply by declaring their gender identity, without the need for medical certificates or experts' opinions. This law, already valid in 21 countries, makes it easier for people to change their identity. In contrast, the UK requires a gender recognition certificate, which involves a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, framing transgender identity as a medical issue. While trans rights activists argue that self-ID promotes inclusivity, I want to explore the potential risks women could face. Why are most people here against the self-ID today?
Well, because we don't think that men should be given all access to women-only spaces. We think that women deserve to have safety and privacy and dignity away from men when they need it, which is not very often, but when we need it, we need it.
We have no place to go for safety anymore because trans women are allowed in.
Well, why is that a concern that trans women are in women's spaces?
Well, the biggest concern is because they're men and women are more vulnerable. And when they're in spaces such as changing rooms, they can literally just sit there and watch you get changed. Nurses in Darlington are having to get changed in a cupboard because there's a man who calls himself a woman in their changing rooms.
Any man who wants to call himself a woman and go into a woman's space, particularly where there's women getting undressed or children getting undressed, it's nothing about their rights. Why do they want to be in that space? They're there for nefarious reasons. There's no other reason why a man demands to be in a changing room with my young daughters.
What a lot of people don't realise is that the roots of many trans identities for men, slightly different motivations when it's women, but for men who call themselves women, the motivation is often sexual. They get a thrill out of it. They are autogynephiles, and every time you call them she, they get a euphoria boner. And well, it's the truth. So that is why, ultimately, why these things get pushed through, because male sexuality is the driving force for so much in this world.
It's about power, because voyeurism is a sex crime of looking at women. That's what they're doing by sitting in changing rooms and making women feel uncomfortable.
I mean, now you can even get fined up to €10,000 for misgendering someone. Like, do you just think, like, the world's gone mad, or, you know?
I think it's utter insanity. It's like mass psychosis.
So if I say to you, you look like a fine woman to me, you could try and get me to pay you €10,000.
How does that make you feel?
Well, I feel like, I wonder what would happen if there was a mass action where a bunch, like hundreds and hundreds of people went and called men. I don't know. Would they really go through with it?
Hi. I use she, her pronouns. I'm not sir. Yeah, like it's like a knife in the heart.
People should be able to express themselves how they want. In fact, I'm very for gender non-conformity. But this is utterly, utterly regressive. It's reducing women to clothes, to makeup, and to fetish.
Does it kind of degrade what it means to be a woman in itself as well? If you say, oh, anyone can be a woman or anyone can be a man.
But what this is point, it devalues the language. It's a linguistic slight, because men can never be women.
The opinion on self-ID laws regarding women's spaces was clear, but how far will women's safeguarding be eroded? In the UK, the British Transport Police have stated that transgender women police officers, biological men, can now conduct intimate searches of women. Are we as a society putting women in potentially humiliating circumstances, Or are we creating equality for transgender rights?
You know, I was a real tomboy when I was younger and I had short hair and everything, you know, I wasn't a boy. And I can understand some people feel that they're that way. But also there's a lot of people with mental health problems, they're not getting the care they want and instead they're having their bodies destroyed, they're, you know, medicalising, chopping bits off, they can't go back. Self-ID laws basically say that a man could change to a woman and then change back again. I mean, what does that mean?
Why do you feel like people feel like they are a woman as much as they transition? They have this feeling inside them that they want to become a woman. Where does that stem from?
God knows.
Right.
You know, is it jealous? Do they hate women? And do they think they can be a better woman than we can? You just don't know. And this thing that they think they can breastfeed. You cannot breastfeed.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you just look at this, the scientific definition of a female mammal is producing milk, and they can't, so...
No way, you know, or have a child. Or, yeah, perhaps so, but only through lots of medical intervention and operations. It's as if they're redefining the word, and it's just, you know, you could weep sometimes for what's happening.
What about someone who transitions, who literally cuts off their penis to try and become a woman?
They're still a man. You know, a man without a penis is still a man, and they should not be in female spaces.
Aside from the potential threats to women, is the threats to children.
When I was a kid, I thought that I'm a pirate. Thank God my parents did not let me cut off my arm or poke out my eye.
Self-ID law allows for anyone from the age of 14 to be legally allowed to change their sex, or from birth if the parents decide to do so.
What your promotion and your ideology does to the children is let's cut off your genitals. Now we're gonna pretend that you're a girl.
It's not kind to children who are now in Germany. If you always wanted a little boy, but you give birth to a girl, doesn't matter, because you can just now change your birth certificate and bingo, you've got the boy you've always wanted.
It's child abuse. Parents can't decide their child's sex. Their child is born male or female. And to tell a child that they're the opposite sex is child abuse.
Do you think gender and sex are the same or separate?
Gender is a meaningless word. It's a subjective word. It has different meanings for different people.
Some people say gender's personality. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, gender identity, I don't know what the difference is between gender identity and personality. There's no explanation about what it actually means.
Yeah.
Your sex, if you're a boy, you're male. If you're a girl, you're female.
Babies do not have a concept of gender identity which is simply sexist stereotypes. They maybe have them imposed upon them by family, by society, but babies do not have an innate gender soul that sometimes gets delivered to the wrong body.
Despite parents trying to transition their children, say, from a woman to a man and a man a woman, do you think eventually, whether they do that or not, the child will just realise that who they are by sex just from the physical differences between men and women?
I'm not sure. I think if you indoctrinate a child from really young, you can make them believe anything because, of course, children are children. They're not adults. And this is treating children as if they have the same level of understanding as adults. They don't.
The thought that you can put a child on puberty blockers, which are mentally harming, they're cognitively harming, they cause developmental delay, they're not irreversible, there is lasting damage. And then they go on to have cross-sex hormones. Again, they cause cancer, they cause heart attacks, they cause untold damage to your body and your bones. Osteoporosis before the age of 20, it's just wrong.
I completely understand and empathise with girls who wish they weren't girls and who see what women are treated like and think, I want no part of that. I'm not a girl, I'm not one of them, I'm a full person, I'm not just a sex object. And their motivation and the motivation of children who have been deeply confused by the propaganda in their schools. This is completely different to the motivation of your Uncle Dave, who really gets a thrill from wearing your auntie's suspenders.
We're ruining people's bodies, and it's not just children, it's young people and, older men, that some of them, are just cross-dressers, basically. We used to call them cross-dressers.
It's just changed and changed, evolved to this point now, isn't it, where we're at now? Yeah. Is it fair to call all the people who want to become women or the people who become men criminals? Is that fair to say that they all are? Or
No. I mean, I've got a family member that's trans-identified and love him more than anything in the world, and I just want him to not destroy his body.
Yeah.
I would do anything for him. I would jump in front of a bus for him if I needed to.
Yeah.
He's not a criminal. He's got issues, including myself in the past. You know, life's full of ups and downs, and I think when you don't feel comfortable in yourself, it can be body dysmorphia, whether it's anorexia or anything like that. We're giving people a diagnosis without actually looking at what their symptoms are and what's wrong.
I just wanted to talk about autistic children who make up a significant number of the children and young people who are currently identifying away from their sex. There are so many reasons why an autistic child might feel completely disconnected from their body that are actually just entirely related to autism, to things like low levels of interoception, alexithymia, which means that they can't recognise or name emotions. It can leave them feeling profoundly disconnected because they don't know why they're feeling the way they do. I'm autistic myself. It's incredibly difficult growing up autistic. Just constantly feeling like you don't ever quite fit. That the world is constantly moving just slightly out of sync with you. And that's really hard for kids. So if somebody comes along and says, you know, you can pick out of a huge list of identities, and going back to the point about personalities, if you look at the list of gender identities, they really do correlate to just aspects of personality, just different things that you like or that you're interested in. And they find something that they like or they're interested in, and there's a flag and a sense of belonging. Of course they're going to go for it. Of course kids are going to be attracted by that.
Self-ID basically means all you need to do is declare that you're the opposite sex and it's valid. It's much easier to get passports. People don't realise you can change your birth certificate. You know, you can come out of prison for a sexual offence and change your identity, which helps to avoid laws and safeguarding.
I only heard about this like last month. That was crazy to me that when I read about this. Yeah, I mean, what kind of threat is that putting just on society, not even just women itself?
And the victim as well. You know, there's a young lady at the moment that's done a few interviews about her father who horrifically abused her and farmed her out to other men like she was nothing. And, you know, he's gone into prison. He's decided he's a woman when he's come out. And, you know, he can go around basically in a disguise. People say it doesn't happen or it's just a one-off.
Yeah.
It does happen. It's not just a one-off. There's more and more men in prisons all over the world that are declaring themselves women. In America, they're even sharing women's prisons with no real restrictions. They're having to give out condoms in prison. And I think when people say that we're just catastrophising or don't worry about it, it won't affect you, it does, it already is.
We've had cases here where it's happened. We've just had the case in Ireland of Barbie Kardashian, who threatened to a prison officer and an inmate and admitted it in court and still was put back in the women's prison.
Yeah.
I mean, the world has lost its mind at the moment. Insanity rules. It's crazy.
Why do you think these rules are getting put in place though? I mean, something's happening. It's happening in Germany. How soon would it happen in the UK?
I think there's a lot of people who are scared. There's been a lot of tactics where if you speak up, you are cancelled, you are set upon, and we all know this, and it's happening to academics, it's happening to politicians. But, you know, when you have somebody like David Lammy, who actually said there is a video of him being interviewed, and he says that you can grow a cervix, then we really are in la-la land.
If what it means to be a woman is continually evolving, what does this mean for the future of biologically born women? Recently in Scotland, a legal case reached the Supreme Court involving For Women Scotland and the Scottish ministers. The case centres around the question, is a person with a gender recognition certificate legally recognised as a woman? How soon will it be until this becomes the norm in other parts of the world?
But one of the biggest reasons that there aren't more people against this is the lack of media coverage.
Yeah, 100%.
Nobody will be here today. This will not be covered. This is going on all over the world. I mean, I don't even know where you're from. I haven't.
Oh, YouTube, yeah, YouTube.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, even with stats itself, like, talk about the media, when it comes to crime now, they'll say women commit more crimes or men commit more crimes because the data is skewed.
Exactly. I mean, if you know, all of a sudden we've got a spike in female rapists. Please.
It has got to stop, and I urge anybody to just look into it more. Don't worry if people think you're a bigot. Look, my family knows how I feel. They know I love them, and I do anything for them. I'm in this because I want to protect them, because I don't want my family member to destroy his body. I don't want the children to destroy their bodies. I want everybody to be comfortable and love themselves. And you can't do that if you spend your life trying to be somebody else. And they say it's their true self, but you shouldn't have to chop bits off your body to become your true self. Everybody's beautiful in their own way, and I really just wish, and it breaks my heart that children think that they need to change, because they really don't.
Hearing the struggles women and children are facing, should more focus be placed on the medical responses to those wanting to change sex? It makes you question, will self-ID laws intended to promote inclusivity ultimately cause more harm than good in the future? Whilst the West debates over the basic question of what is a woman, women in other parts of the world fight for the right to exist freely. A few days ago, a student was arrested in Iran for not abiding to the Islamic dress code. As a protest, she walked around in her underwear in the streets.
Named as Ahu Daryai, the footage appears to show the university student in an act of defiance against Iran's strict Islamic dress code.
Till now, people don't know whether she's alive or just in prison.
The university says she suffers from mental health issues, but a student social media channel claims she'd previously been harassed by security forces inside the university's grounds.
And as protests calling for her release around the world began, I joined the activist group Stage of Freedom, who were standing in solidarity and making their voices heard. So as you can see, the tourists are out today in London, and literally everyone in the street is looking, wondering what is going on. Yeah, they're walking to Trafalgar Square. I don't know what's going to happen by the time we get there, but let's find out. Why are you here today?
We're here to support the girl in Iran. She gets fed up with the Islamic regime, which is all the time. They took her to prison. Maybe as usual, they use as a sex prisoner, but this Islamic regime, which is in Iran, has to go. And we are not a Muslim, all of our people in the country. We are different, but we also can get on with each other. But the Islamic regime is forcing us to follow what they say, their ideology.
So is this more against Iran and Islamic regime besides the girl who was obviously taken somewhere arrested?
Yeah. Ahu Daryai, who is a university student, I don't know where she is and what they've done it to her. And that's why we are supporting her and we're protesting that to free her. But the Islamic regime is happy.
Do you think protests like this will work or send a message? Obviously, we have a lot of press here today.
Of course. Every support for the women's rights is very valuable, and we are doing our best. We will get rid of this regime eventually, very soon, because we have a king. We want the king of Iran come back, Reza Shah II. That's all which we wish.
Sure. Seems like the police are here because it's disrupting the road. Just the one officer. Look at the traffic jam is caused.
You go ahead, go.
No, is it alright to get them on the pavement? No, because they're obstructing the road. There's a lot of traffic to cause it. Yeah, so
What I've learned about protests is that, they're meant to be kind of organised and arranged. You can't just walk in the street like this unless it's actually been given the green light.
on the side, it'll be very, very hot.
You're quite brave. I think it's about 10 degrees. It's a cold, crisp day in London. How come you decide to wear just your underwear?
Because I want to have freedom for everyone.
Do you think this kind of message that you're sending will work?
I hope so.
I see you got some message on your stomach. What does that say?
Take button kids. Yeah. At the moment, they are on waiting for execution.
Wow. As you see, guys, she's pretty cold. She's freezing. She can barely speak. It's a good half a mile walk from where we were. But yeah, literally shaking as she's walking down to Trafalgar Square. Wow. And these are the women who are protesting.
They're just so inspiring, these young people that you see fighting back in Iran, showing their hair, flaunting and flouting the dress codes. I mean, it's just, they just deserve to be supported. It's just incredible.
Why do you think protests such as this finally gain traction when something catastrophic happens? Why can it always be more of a proactive approach rather than a reactive kind of approach that we tend to see?
Well, I think they do. I mean, they are pretty good at organising this. These kinds of things, but I think maybe we pay more attention to them. So maybe, certainly myself, I saw Ahu Daryari, you see the picture of her at the university in her underwear. You know, it's very kind of striking, it's very symbolic, this whole idea of a single individual standing up for something that they believe in. So yeah, maybe it's us, maybe we don't notice it until we're shocked into action, and maybe the protests are going on all the time, I don't know.
So guys, we're just going past the we're just going past the Queen's Guards, the Horse Guards, and as you can see, the tourists are out today. I wonder what they think walking past, seeing all this. Bloody hell.
Islamic regime, fascist regime!
Alright, we've now made it towards Trafalgar Square, but yeah, there has been like children and concerned parents, obviously with the type of clothing that you're seeing here. And it is winter, she must be freezing, but it's kind of sending this message, protesting against the girl that was arrested. And wow, look at all the bystanders just filming it. It's really causing quite a scene here in London today, quite cold London. Even got the Christmas lights up. Alright, okay, but let's cross the road here. Wow, look at it. Ladies, what's your thoughts on all of it?
I don't know what it is, but I agree with women, life and freedom, right?
I think it's against the girl in Iran that was arrested for wearing this type of dress in public.
Well, you know what, to be honest with you, she's naked. I wouldn't want, you know how they say no shirts, no shoes, no socks, no service? I don't want to see naked walking in the street, but
yeah, do you think
women should have a right to wear what they want.
Sure, but when there's like kids around, it's a bit,
no one needs to see that, right? Yeah. Decorum. Thank you.
No worries, here's the words. Mixed feelings as you've heard about this kind of protest. This is one way to send a message. I don't know if everyone would agree with it, but this is what they're doing today, and it is causing a scene in London. We've now entered Trafalgar Square. But yeah, from the chants that I've heard, they're more against the Islamic regime that you heard in Iran. Obviously, you have a situation in Afghanistan as well with the Taliban.
She's representing the protest for equal rights.
Yeah. Do you think it's alright to walk around in her underwear?
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Everybody should be able to walk around in whatever they want.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on women's rights? They're talking specifically against Islamic countries, but what's your kind of take on it?
Islamic countries, any countries, women don't have equal rights. We're not treated as equal human beings.
Is that to do with religion or is that to do with social norms?
It's to do with oppression across the world. Women don't have the same rights that men have on their bodies.
Yeah. Do you think stuff like this can work?
Probably not. But we need to make a stand.
Yeah. So the process is just finishing up now. As you can see, the police are here trying to disperse this quite small protest, but although it was small, it was very powerful. As you saw, it kind of turned a lot of heads as we're walking through London.
I think it's a really wonderful thing to do, and I hope more people take note of it. I think, you know, when you think of the poor women in Afghanistan who can't even talk to each other in public or sing or dance anymore because of Islamists, and that poor woman Ayu, who we don't even know if she's even alive, and it's our fight as well. Women's rights is a universal right, and women and feminists in Britain should be standing with women in Iran and across the Middle East against Islamist repression.
Some feminists may disagree with the certain clothing that was worn today, but what's your take on it?
I think she looked gorgeous, but I hope she doesn't get pneumonia.
We are trying to raise awareness for the people what's happening inside Iran, and people inside Iran, they wanted to have Islamic Republic go. They don't want them anymore. So we believe just there is one solution, and that is a revolution. We want Islamic Republic leave our country, and we wanted to get back our country. So Iranian people, we are a great nation. I'm sure we're going to raise, and then we're going to make it great again.
As the world continues to evolve, the oppression of women is happening. Whether it's through redefining what it means to be a woman or fighting for basic freedoms in Islamic countries such as Iran, it raises the question, what kind of society do we want to live in? Does allowing anyone to self-identify as a woman bring us closer to equality in the West? At what point does the pursuit of inclusivity begin to exclude others? Let me know, what do you think?